Hello, 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 and welcome. Welcome to the big reveal. So happy to see you here, and thank you for joining. Thank you for joining the live event. I'm streaming on a few platforms, so there may be a bit of a lag between comments and everything. So let me know if you can see me, if you can hear me. Want to, of course, make sure that technology is running smoothly. So type in the chat wherever you're tuning in from, if you can see me and hear me. And we are going to get started. So this is the official launch celebration of Mastering Multifamily Underwriting: 5 Steps to Confident, Risk Smart Apartment Investing. And I'm so grateful for you, so grateful that you are here today, that you're able to join live. Whether you're joining in from LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or simply catching the replay. Before we dive in, let me know in the chat where you are joining from. I love to see how the global map lights up. So let me know where you're joining from. And also, if you have invested in multifamily before, whether it's passive or active, or if type yes on if this is your first time exploring underwriting, type new. Would love to see where everyone is dialing from or virtually joining from, and where you're at in your journey. Oh, wow, I see Atlanta, and thank you for confirming. Most importantly, that you can see me and hear me. Thank you, James, for joining. Thank you, Troyan. Really appreciate you being here today. Well, while we're getting set up and while folks are continuing to join, allow me to briefly introduce myself, especially for those who may be tuning in for the first time, or perhaps those who don't know me. I'm a former commercial lender turned real estate investor and entrepreneur. And today I help companies and investors in a couple of ways. I advise family offices, family enterprises on strategic investments, due diligence, risk management, and governance. I also consult private investors on the complexities of the deal structure and the underwriting. And for those willing to do a deeper dive, I have a course and community that effectively takes people through the full process, A to Z, and helps them learn how to evaluate a deal from beginning to end, even if they've never underwritten a deal before. And many are able to close on their first deal within the first 12 months of the program, but really within the first 12 weeks, they typically get the basics and are able to evaluate a deal. So, again, really happy and grateful that you're able to join the live. Oh, salam alaikum from Clock GR44. And happy birthday, William Honan, to your furry friend. Thank you, Arab Kumar, and for joining. And oh, I see Portland. Hello, hello, Manju. So great to see you. Hello, Praha. Thank you, guys. Thank you for joining and saying hello. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started because I have a lot planned for you today, a lot of things to share about the project, special gifts and bonuses that I promised to share, and of course, carving out time to address some of your most burning questions about apartment investing and due diligence. As I was briefly hinting about the launch, some of you actually messaged questions, so we'll make sure those are addressed as well. But today is really, really special. Someone asked me recently, how long did it take you to write this book? And here it is, by the way. I'm not sure if you can see it in the screen, but here it is. Um, Someone asked me, how long did it take you to write this book? And Really, it's been years in the making. All the content was first here, then it came to life in the form of a more structured course, and finally, I decided that this year will be the year when it goes live. It was really years of lending experience, years of underwriting, and sadly, in the past a couple of years, watching people get hurt because they did not fully understand how to evaluate a deal. And last but not least, years of helping people become confident, risk smart apartment investors. And so today I want to celebrate the new chapter that begins with this book, but not just for me, but for every investor who wants to transform from overwhelm to clarity. And so I want to pause for a second and share with you the why behind this book. This is a really nice segue. It does go technical in certain areas, and yes, it is about underwriting and evaluating apartments, but I also wanted to bring the why and the reality, not only of today's market, but any market to life. And so I intertwined characters within the story, case studies, real stories, examples of deal gone wrong, or deals gone great. And while the characters of the story are fictional and the actual stories have been changed a little bit just to protect the confidentiality of the cases and situations I've gone through, not only myself, but also with investors and folks that I've consulted and helped. They're all based on true stories and real experiences, mine and that those of many investors that I have helped with. So I wrote this book because I watched too many good people lose money on deals that look beautiful on the surface. And this is very personal to me, not because they were not smart, not because they were not capable, but because they just didn't know how to properly see behind the numbers, maybe didn't have the right tools and resources. But the good news is that underwriting is not a mysterious art. It is a skill, it is a lens, it is a protective shield. And when you learn it, and you don't have to be a Wall Street analyst to do that. You can invest with clarity instead of trust by association and social media galore, which I see too often happen. Like I said, you don't have to be a Wall Street analyst or professional underwriter or a top tier commercial bank to learn how to underwrite. Just like a foreign language or any new skill that you pick up, it's learning how to dance or learning how to drive, just like any new skill, step by step, practice by practice, with the right guide and the right team by your side, you can accomplish anything. And just like that, you can also learn underwriting. It is something that's accessible, doable, and you can do it as well. And so that's the behind, that's the why, that's the heart behind the book. In addition, there are not too many books on apartment underwriting out there. And based on conversation with investors that I've had again over a period of time, a lot of the content out there failed to address the very beginner and explain the process in bite size, easy to understand, plain English. I also noticed over the years that many investor materials on underwriting fail to address the largest partner in a deal, and that's the lender. And being a former lender myself, I thought it would be appropriate to include the lender angle and the lender lens within the content. And so the book actually includes an entire bonus chapter on how lenders think, helping equip you with the valuable knowledge and perspective that you may apply when evaluating any apartment deal. And I keep saying apartment, but the truth is that a lot of the concepts and the basics that I teach and share in the book can actually be applied across other asset classes. Of course, each asset class has its own nuance, but the knowledge that you gain there, you can apply across other commercial real estate asset classes. So, allow me, I'll pick up the book and allow me to read an excerpt or two that will give you an idea of not only what's in the book, but illustrate some of what I just shared behind the why. So the first one is a little emotional, and it's a part of chapter 1, the moment that Jane's entire investing journey changes. So let me read that. She clicked the email, important update on your investment. Her $50,000 gone. Not misplaced, not delayed, gone. In that moment, she understood something she had never questioned before. She had trusted excitement and not the numbers. So, this is where Jane's transformation begins. And for many readers, this is where their own mindset shifts to, if you choose to. It reminds me of a saying of Tony Robbins: it is the meaning that we derive from those key moments, failures, challenges that shapes who we become along the way and the next step in our journey. It is in those moments of decision that our destiny is shaped. So, excerpt 2 is from the moment that Jane meets her mentor, Rossi Monroe, and that changes everything. So, Rossi looked her in the eyes and said, "You cannot undo the loss, but you can make sure it never happens again." Underwriting is not about being a bank, it is about protecting your capital. And that is what it's all about. It's understanding the risk and how it can be managed, with the numbers being only part of the story, right? There's a lot that goes into risk mitigation. And again, you cannot eliminate risk, right? As investors, we get paid to take risk. But underwriting and betting the numbers is one way you mitigate the risk before you get into a deal. Another key message that I have is that you do not have to do it alone, especially in today's day and age where we're all global and connected. Jane found a mentor, or rather, the mentor found her. It reminds me of the saying, "Seek and you shall receive." Whether that's a mentor, that's a community, or an accountability partner who is one or perhaps two steps ahead of you, remember that you do not have to do it alone. And I find way too often, especially investors new to the space, may get overwhelmed. And I have one more short excerpt. This happens when Jane realizes that she's no longer a passive follower and kind of shows her transformation. For the first time, she was not repeating someone else's conviction. She was relying on her own analysis, and that changed everything. So Jane did the work, she invested in herself, and throughout the book, she transforms from a passive follower to an active thinker and an educated and empowered investor. And you can do it too. In addition to the story, which makes the process a little bit more engaging and the content a little bit more engaging, the book is also full of case studies. There's some math I'm not going to like about that, and basically the science that goes behind underwriting. So the teaching is mixed with not only the story but case studies in an effort to make the technical content a little less overwhelming. It's in plain English, and it also shares additional bonus chapters, like I mentioned, on how lenders think, as well as the actual structure of the deal, not just the underwriting. So it goes into waterfall structures, the private placement memorandum key sections that everyone should pay attention to before they sign those documents. And of course, special bonuses and checklists for those who purchase the book. Those are all hidden inside. So you can unwrap those gifts as soon as you access your copy. And by the way, I posted the link in the chat. I will make sure to post it as well once the recording is over. So it will be in the comments for those of you who are perhaps catching the recording, but it is available officially live as of a couple hours ago. It went live on Amazon, and you can grab an audio copy, digital copy, paperback, or hardcover, whatever your reading preferences. So, but now I wanted to share with you a very brief demo of one of the bonuses that I include in the book. There are many, but one of those is what I call the Market Assistant GPT that I created. And it basically helps you vet a market, at least do the preliminary vetting of a market just within a few minutes. So you can hopefully save time versus going through numerous websites and resources in just a matter of seconds. You can determine, does this market fit my own guidelines and criteria or not? What am I not thinking about? What am I perhaps overlooking? So I'm going to grab the GPT right here and share my screen so you can see. So give me just a moment. Share screen. Just one moment. Here's Chat GPT, Market Assistant. Appreciate your patience. All right, so here it is, and it starts with a few prompting questions. Probably the best way is to type in an address, and it will zero in on that market. But let's just say we'll start with the city. What is the city? And let's just say the address, the sample address. I actually picked that from a live deal. So it gives you suggestions on how to really type in the market. So I'll just say Tampa, Florida. And it's going to summarize it citywide. I'll just say market analysis. I will share with you the address afterwards so you can vet the sub-market too. Okay. And it will start doing its work. So it summarizes, it uses, again, official sources, whether it's Axios, Census, brokerage reports, and walks you through the key KPIs, which, by the way, I also detail in the book. And I also share some of the additional resources and bonuses for those who unlock the gifts hidden within the book. It wraps up with market strengths as well as risks. And I happen to know this market well, so it's very nicely summarizing the rising inventory as well as the vacancy in certain sub-markets. It gives you a nice summary table in the end, so you can decide, do these KPIs meet my key criteria? So then, if you type in the address, and again, this is one I took from a live deal, It will give you a little bit more specifics about that particular neighborhood. Now, the GPT does not access subscription-based databases like, say, CoStar or ERD unless they publish the data publicly, right? Then it will grab that information, but it wouldn't necessarily log into these sites. So for those subscription-based paid reports, you will need to get your own access. But again, the goal is to give you that within seconds, those key parameters, so you can decide, what do I need to watch out for when I review the investment deck, or is this a market that I really even want to be in? So it goes through a few additional KPIs here that are specific to the neighborhoods, including crime, any other location dynamics, and very similar to the key to the market analysis. It gives you again a table, a summary of strengths and weaknesses, and then again it prompts you for additional steps. So I'm gonna stop sharing now, but you can basically go back and forth with it, and again the goal is to save you some time, right? And hopefully costly mistakes as you evaluate the markets that you're presented with on the decks and the offering memos that you encounter. So now it's time for a little fun. Not that it hasn't been fun up until now, but it's time for the fun segment, and I call that a deal or disaster. So I will walk you through the scenario and type in the chat if you think this is a deal or disaster. So I have actually several planned for you. And oh, by the way, those are based on real stories. Again, some of the details or numbers here have been massaged to protect the innocent, as I say, but these are still real situations that I encounter every day. So scenario number one, you have a Class B property with 3% rent growth in a market that is trending between 0 and 1%. Expense growth has been assumed to be at 2%. Is this a deal or disaster? So type your comments in the chat and I'll be watching that. Again, there may be a little bit of a delay between when you type and when it pops on my end, since it's coming from a few different platforms. And I see, hi Joseph, hi Donna from Long Island, New York. Hi Janice. The names have been changed to protect the innocent. Yes, Encarnacion. Appreciate you. Appreciate that. So time for the big review. Well, based on the unrealistic expense growth and rent growth assumptions, I will call this deal a disaster. Everything flows down from the top, right? From the rent growth and rent assumptions. I actually cover this line by line, the income and expense parameters in much detail in the book. So it's time for scenario number two. A value add deal with $7,000 per unit estimated renovation cost that has a 10% buffer, and that is projected to result in $120 rent increase per unit as a result of that rehab. Is it a deal or disaster? So give it a moment and let me check the chat again. Make sure I don't miss your lovely comments. Oh, thank you, Granite, for the kind words. And hi, CMB. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you, Cash, for joining. Okay, I will say this is a deal, actually. This is a deal, all else equal, and assuming reasonable assumptions for the rest of the deal structure, which, by the way, I cover in detail in the book. This rehab results in 21% return on investment for all the hard work that the operator will do. So I would call this a deal. Scenario number three, a sponsor assuming cap rate compression during a declining interest rate environment. Deal or disaster? And oh, by the way, we were in that environment not too long ago, and many years ago, right before the Fed actually started raising rates in 2022. Rates have peaked, and they have started lowering rates again. So it's deja vu all over again. And so while I await for the responses to come in, oh, Cash got the right response. Big, big, big disaster. Yes. So sadly, I saw that happening in 2021, 2022. People were assuming lower exit cap rates. And again, in the book, I explain in details why that matters and why that's important. And sadly, guess what? Many did not learn those lessons. And I see in a lot of deals crossing my desk very similar assumptions today, meaning people hope the market will improve and that rates will continue to decline to very low levels. So, is this speculation? In my humble opinion, yes, it is. Is it prudent risk management? Absolutely no. So, scenario number four, and I have a couple more. Scenario number four. Now, this is a 1980s Class C property that needs interior upgrades, exterior repairs, has a ton of deferred maintenance and cleanup. The operator budgeted 5,000 per unit for rehab in a market where contractors are consistently quoting at least $8,000 per unit for similar scope of work that they cited. They also assume 12-month renovation timeline for a 200 unit property with one maintenance tech. So I'll give you a moment to share what you think. Is it a deal or disaster? Again, and I see the responses trickling in. Okay, so Cash for the winning again. Yes, complete disaster, mostly because of the underfunded, under budgeted capex, as well as unrealistic timelines and what appears to be labor constraints. And yes, believe it or not, Ripley's believe it or not, I have sadly seen too many deals with zero stabilization period and no buffers or under budgeted capex expenses relative to where the market is today. All right, scenario number five, a property that's in a tertiary market that is growing in population due to influx of jobs with diversified employer base. It happens to be a college town as well. There is a wave of new supply of single family homes that are coming online in the next 1 or 2 years, but apartment supply has been low. At best, new construction will be brand new property, so Class A. Most of the demographic is gray and blue color, and hint, hint, they may not be able to afford those brand new, beautiful homes. Occupancy in the market is currently fluctuating between 95 to 100%, and market rents have been growing steadily at a clip far exceeding 3%. So, deal or disaster? What will be your verdict for this particular deal? All right, so let me check the chat, make sure that I'm not missing your wonderful responses. Again, tertiary market that's growing, diversified employer base, high occupancy, gray and blue collar workforce housing, junior managerial level. And drum roll, the answer is it's a deal, all else equal, based on the underlying market conditions and based on assuming the deal has been properly underwritten, right? Sometimes those best deals, including some of my own, have been in those tertiary markets that nobody talks about. But again, they need to be with strong fundamentals. And last one, so scenario number six. So a deal where the sponsor models a 2-year heavy value add to reposition the property. However, they take on floating rate bridge loan with no interest rate cap, no extension option, minimal reserves, because they firmly believe that rents will grow, and cap rates will drop, which, by the way, their CoStar underwriting report says as well. And debt service coverage drops to 0.95 times in months 6 to 12. But they think that the underwriting, they think that the buffer is so close that the underwriting is pretty much equal to one, so they can make their debt payments. So they basically assume the market will cooperate to cover the gap. So is this a deal or disaster? What will be your answer? So 2-year heavy value add, floating rate bridge loan, which is typical for this type of business plan, right? The heavy value add. They're not mitigating the interest rate risk, no extension options, minimal reserves. They think rents will go up, cap rates will go down, because some report tells them that, just one report, not multiple sources. And they think DSCR is close enough and the market will save them. Oh, Cash wins again. Cash is on a roll. Cash, I'll have a special surprise for you. So, and thank you, Manju. Yes, that is a disaster. And yes, capital call very soon. So, by the way, some of these examples are straight from the book or real stories that I've gone through, because I do take calls and consult investors when sadly they're going through a capital calls, and they're patterns, right? Patterns that lead to those situations. Again, you cannot eliminate risk, but you can mitigate it by properly understanding what can go wrong with a deal, and mitigate that accordingly. And so I want to pause for a second and share a few early reader voices, because this book is not just my story. It is Jay's story, it is Ross's story, it is your story as well. And these words truly humbled me. I had a few people who expressed interest, and thank you to the book launch team. You know who you are. There's many of you, and I don't want to accidentally miss a name or two. So you know who you are, and really, really appreciate you. I want to express my gratitude for taking the time to provide feedback, support the launch, share the book with many people, and most importantly, share your early impressions. And here are some of those, so you can get a feel for what others are saying about the book, in case you may be interested. I think you're doing a great job using the story of Jane and Rossi to illustrate the importance of analyzing the numbers before investing in a deal. The idea of elixir, knowledge, process, and discipline really stood out. You truly have a gift for teaching. As a rookie, I understood concepts I thought were too complex. Examples were clear, simple, and easy to follow. As a bookworm who has read 100 finance books, this is one of the best. It is comprehensive, timeless, and grounded in real risk management. You wrote something genuinely needed: storytelling mixed with powerful frameworks. You teach underwriting as a protection and not just math. And it is those words and those voices that remind me why I wrote this book, which is to help people make better, educated decisions, to limit losses, and to invest with confidence. And for those who decide to purchase a copy today or even later on, but today there are special bonuses that I will be announcing shortly. I'll be super grateful if you can share your review on Amazon. It not only helps the book, but it also helps the book reach many other people and spread the message, and most importantly, positively impact investors. So I did promise in the beginning that I will leave time for questions, and I have a few things planned. So after the question session, so stay tuned, including announcing some of the special bonuses. So drop your questions in the chat. Any underwriting questions, passive investing, deals analysis, anything related to that. Like I said, a few of you had shared questions in advance through some of the social media pre-announcements that I had. So I will take the time to address those, and we'll hop right back into the chat to cover any additional ones that pop up in the meantime. So what is the first thing I should look at in any deal? Well, definitely the underwriting is key, but before you even get to the numbers, the number one thing that I look at is evaluating the sponsor. And I do share a few tidbits and ideas on how to evaluate a sponsor. And oh, by the way, one of the bonus materials that is inside the book is a sponsor vetting checklist, very detailed one that I actually use myself. So it starts with the sponsor, because a sponsor can make a poor deal an amazing one when they turn it around through very solid operations. They can also take a great deal and run it to the ground, and I've seen plenty examples of that. So before even looking at the numbers, I would start with vetting the sponsor. How do you know if rent growth assumptions are realistic? Okay, well, that's a great question. Um, well, you have to validate, right? And validate through multiple resources, which I share throughout the book. There are a lot of public sources that are free, and I share a list of those. Of course, paid reports that you can get access to, and I share a list of those in the book. So some of the free, right, would be like apartments.com, CoStar would be one of the paid ones. Boots on the ground knowledge, property manager knowledge, that's indispensable. Of course, the operator, when they present a deal to you, they typically or if they're not, they should be taking those steps. So they can already share those sources with you and the list of their rent comps that you can validate yourself through one of these resources that I mentioned. But do your independent check, and then you make your own assessment if that's something you're comfortable with. Does the book cover fundamentals that can be applied to any asset type? Absolutely. And really appreciate the question, Cash. So yes, the book does cover those fundamentals. It's really, apartment is the centerpiece and focus of it, but because apartments, right, fall into the commercial real estate asset class, a lot of those assumptions can be applied to a lot of the fundamentals can be applied to any other asset class, in addition, of course, to the nuances for that particular asset class. What are the biggest underwritten expenses people underestimate? Oh, that's a good one. I way too often see, of course, taxes and insurance. These are big ones, but I way too often I see people underestimate repair and maintenance, admin expenses. Some of the contract services, like these are the subscription-based services, and they can add up. A couple $100 can put a pretty big dent in your NOI, and unless you raise rents by a couple $100 or find other expenses that you can cut by a couple $100, that can really set you back. So overlooking those can be problematic. How much reserves do you recommend and why? Again, that's a very really depends on your personal risk tolerance, right? But so for me, I personally prefer 6 months of operating expenses and debt service, which basically means if my revenue declines to a certain point or expenses rise to a certain point, I have a 6 month runway to do something that saves the deal, and I don't jeopardize my biggest partner, typically the lender. 6 months is ample time, right, to for you to address the situation, and hopefully the operator, right, the lead sponsor that you've partnered with is not just waiting, right, for the train to crash, but they're monitoring the deal daily. They have a daily, weekly, monthly, right, cash flow forecast. So they can hopefully slow down on the brakes before the train crashes, and hopefully don't even need that 6 month runway. But that's what I usually like to see, because it's not a matter of if, but when things happen. I wish I could tell you all deals go smoothly, and yes, there may be unicorns out there. I've seen those, but it's a business, right? At the end of the day, you're operating a business, so things do go wrong. Um, oh, thank you, Encarnacion. You just purchased your copy. Really, really appreciate you. And by the way, you will be in the bonus section. So, do you prefer Crexy Intelligence or CoStar as a data source? So, ideally both. And appreciate the question, Cash. Ideally both. So you can compare data points, and over time, especially when you focus on the market, by referencing multiple resources, this will give you a good idea. But I personally gravitate towards CoStar, not because Crexi is anything. There's anything wrong with Crexi. It's an excellent source, and there are others as well. But the CoStar has been the longest out there. It's a very detailed report. They collect real-time data that you can see. Actually, in the course and community that I have, I had a whole session on how to evaluate the CoStar underwriting report. It's not perfect by any means. No single data point is perfect. There's some nuances that you have to pay attention to. But of the two, I've mostly used CoStar just by virtue of it being the more popular one out there and it being out there for longer. But Crexi is an excellent resource as well. And if you can tap into both, I would say that will be um, uh, that will be better. Oh, thanks for letting me know. I didn't realize LinkedIn is experiencing slight delay, so hopefully YouTube works better. Thanks, Cash, for letting me know. And then one last question before I transition to the next segment is, again, I'll come back to the Q&A because I know there will be more. So rest assured, any single question today will be addressed. When should an investor walk away from a deal? As an underwriter, definitely I'll tell you follow the numbers, but that gut feeling, it's priceless. There have been times when I didn't listen to it and when I made mistakes, so definitely gut feel. But as an investor, you don't want to just rely on gut feel. You want to have your decision backed by data and numbers. And so if you find any derogatory information on a sponsor that they didn't disclose, or if they're not communicating with you, not fully addressing your question, that would be one reason to walk away. If you find a red flag in the market, and by the way, one of the gifts in the book is a market vetting assistant and a sponsor vetting assistant, and I also include a very detailed checklist on how to evaluate both. So if any of the key performance indicators or KPIs raise a concern or red flag, that would be a minute to walk away. And of course, the numbers, right? When you see unrealistic assumptions, or perhaps structural deficiencies, and I cover both in the book, that would be a minute to pause. And if your concerns are unresolved, then walk away. There are a ton of deals out there, right? And great investors are judged not only by the gains and profits that they make, but the losses that they're able to avoid. So, better to walk away from a deal than get into that you may not be 100% sure about, than get into a really bad one, because recovering from those losses really takes years. Oh, thank you, Liz. Really appreciate you. Thank you. Thanks for grabbing yours. And yes, it is a great Christmas great gift, actually, with the tree behind me. And the holidays right around the corner. It's also a great gift to share with someone and spread the love. Um, So yeah, as I said in the beginning, this book has been long time in the making, messy drafts. We're no longer writing right by hand, so I've been doing this on a computer, but they're having so many versions of it of the manuscript until it became final chapter outlines. I have my fur baby featured in the book. I just flipped to the last page. He is now there forever. So there have been a lot of versions. Like I said, it was a stop and go, but it really came in at the right time because it's not only technical and it's not only the teaching aspect of it, but also the emotional, the stories, some of my own as well. So it was not a straight line as at all. It came in when it was supposed to come in at the right time. It was built with discipline, early mornings, late nights, a lot of coffee, but happy that it finally came to fruition because my goal with the book is to positively impact and help many people. And now the book is officially live. I will post the link in the chat again. Let me just grab a copy. And it's officially live. So you can grab your copy on Amazon today, hardcover, paperback, audio, digital, so both available on Kindle and Audible. So when you do come back and type done, I want to celebrate with you. And remember that purchasing today unlocks a number of bonuses. So the first 30 people who purchase, and since I don't have access to the POS system of Amazon, how I'm going to track this is on a first come, first serve basis. So send me a screenshot of your purchase, and that's the best way to document it. I've already started gathering those for those who share that with me. But the first 30 who purchase will get a Deal Express consult for 30 minutes. It's a 30-minute express consult that you can utilize to review a deal that you have, or if you have underwriting questions, anything related to apartment investing, that's just you and I one-on-one covering that together. If you buy 10 copies or more, you get a 60-minute one-on-one deep dive private session. Again, you can leverage it in any way you want when it comes to underwriting or deal analysis. That will be my way of showing my appreciation for supporting the book and again helping it reach many people. And for anyone who purchases today, again, send me your screenshot. If we run out of the 30 and the 10, you'll be invited to a private small group Q&A call. Again, send me not only the screenshot, but the best information, the best way to reach you, so I can reach out to you with additional details and information on when that group call will take place, and of course the link to join. And everyone who buys today will get access to my private 1 hour masterclass, normally not available to the public. It's been taken private a long time ago. So just send your screenshot and quantities and help me help you, and help share all the bonuses that I just announced, as well as I'll share the group code details. For those who want to pay it forward, here is a little challenge. Buy a copy for a friend or colleague or someone in your community who wants to invest smarter. Just one person, one gift, one ripple effect. And with the holidays around the corner, there may be more than one person that you're thinking of. So definitely, that if for anyone looking to level up their game and going into 2026 strong, that will make a great gift. So let me go back to the questions. Thank you, Manju. Thank you, Cash. Thank you, Troyan. I got your copy. Perfect. Yes. I really, really, really appreciate you and appreciate you joining. So I see a couple more questions trickling in, and again, feel free to put these in the chat. Again, there may be a bit of a delay since I'm streaming on multiple platforms, but like I promised, no question will be left unanswered. What makes an operator truly trustworthy beyond the pitch deck? Well, I love this question because this is where the art and the science intertwine. I would always recommend try to connect with them face to face. If you're not geographically in the same location, at a minimum, try to connect over a virtual video or Zoom call or in that manner. But face to face, eye to eye, so you can get a feel of who they are as a person and do you connect with them, because that's important, right? Once you're in a deal, whether as a um, partner, active partner or passive partner, right? Those deals typically have 5 to 7 year tenor, so you want to feel good about the person you're with. How they respond to your questions, right? Some people are more detail oriented than others, so they like to ask a ton of questions. Do they huff and puff and roll their eyes, or do they share the information that you need to make an investment decision? Are they responsive? Are they timely? Because trust me, and I've experienced that as well. If they're not, if they're communicating with a delay or not responding to you before you get into the deal, just imagine, right? During the courtship process, if they're like that, just imagine what it would be like after you're in the deal. And then, of course, track record, not just the one that they post, but I share a few ideas on how to within the book and the checklist that I provide on how to dig a layer into deeper within the track record, and hopefully they're transparent about it. If they're not, or if they don't share the information, um, that would be again a moment to pause and potentially even walk away. So these are just a few things to consider as you evaluate if they're truly trustworthy. um, and then references. Yeah, I forgot to mention references, of course, background checks. How do you stress test a deal in a high rate environment? Oh, I love this question because we are in a high rate environment today, and many people think rates will go down, and they may, but probably not drastically, right? Based on the information that I see today. So you definitely want to run different scenarios, especially if your deal is on a floating rate structure, meaning the rate is fluctuating. If you're, I always recommend get fixed rate debt, so you don't have to worry about it for the 5 to 7 year tenor, or however long the deal is. But there are and there are ways, by the way, to mitigate the exposure. I've written a piece on this. There, once you start getting into derivatives, like the most common one today use this caps, but you can also do swaps. Again, these are secured exposures, so you want to make sure you talk to a specialist and your lender when doing that. But they're forward starting swaps that allow you to float up to a certain point of time and then fix the rate after. But if you are in a totally floating rate situation for whatever reason, I would definitely underwrite the deal, or look at the forward curves, right? And underwrite the deal based on the higher end of that forward curve assumption. And will not assume, and maybe even not maybe, I would even add a buffer, um, like 10, 20 basis point buffer, and not assume that rates will go down. And if they do, then at least you have a little bit more breathing room, or more breathing room than you expected. But if they do go up further, at least you've accounted for that with the information you have available today. Um, Oh, thank you, Horacio. Really, really appreciate you. Just bought your copy, and thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate you. Um, what market fundamentals matter most to you? I love this question. There are many KPIs, right, to look at, but what I really hone in and focus on are population growth, job growth, and diversity, and then median household income, right? The population growth and job growth are indicators of demand or future demand and household formation. The job growth and the median household income are indicators of affordability, right? Especially you typically buy a property with the idea of increasing rents, which flow the way down to the bottom line, meaning profit. So the goal is to increase the profitability of a deal. And so for that reason, I would focus, if anything else, at least on those three at a minimum, right? But there are more, and I cover those in detail. And frankly, if you overlook some of those, you could find yourself in a really bad situation. Just one example I'll share without going too much into detail. In the past couple of years, there were many great markets with strong fundamentals when it comes to population growth, job growth, diversity, median household income, etc. But they had a huge wave of supply coming on board, and now we're seeing the results of that, which is compressed rents in many markets, actually declining rents, higher vacancy, right, which is then not only impacting cash flow but also valuation. So the answer is a little bit more nuanced than just picking one or two or three. But if I was to pick three, this is where I would at least start. How do you evaluate Class B versus Class C opportunity? You guys are really really getting into the details, but I love the question. So again, for those who may not be familiar, Class B are newer properties, right? 1995 and newer, up to maybe um, 2015ish or so, and Class C would be 19, I don't know, 70 to 1995. um, Class B have a little more amenities, typically in more affluent neighborhoods, versus Class C is your typical workforce housing product. And so you have to take that into consideration, right? Who is your client base, and design the business plan accordingly. How is the property managed? Is there an opportunity to increase rents, especially with the Class C space? Not uncommon to find like mom and pop owners who've owned the property forever. Maybe even it's paid off, right? So they've raised rents only a little bit and haven't really brought it to market. So there may be huge opportunity there just by virtue of improving operations, right? To boost the bottom line. Um, Definitely taking into consideration more of the deferred maintenance. It's an older building after all, and the tenant base sometimes is a higher touch, right? So accounting for that in your numbers, both in the P&L as well as the capex, is essential. With Class B, right, you have a slightly more affluent clientele, maybe the gray collar type of client. There's some amenities, or maybe the current operator hasn't included all possible amenities and added them to the table. So there may be opportunities to boost the top line that way. And the rent growth may not be as big, right, as in a Class C property. In the current environment, right, Class C tenants are more likely to be impacted, right, by high inflation, layoffs, right? They're more susceptible to income fluctuations versus Class B, right? That is not to say they cannot be impacted by layoffs, but presumably, right, their income levels are higher, so they can potentially weather a storm slightly better than a Class C opportunity. So planning for that in your rent expense reserve capex assumptions is critical. What is the biggest underwriting mistake passive investors make? Oh boy, when it comes to underwriting, I would say not understanding and vetting the assumptions, and taking the lead sponsors or the main operator's word as the gospel. Again, not suggesting that that is wrong or that the operator hasn't done their work, but um, at the end of the day, they love the deal, they want to do the deal, they see the upside of the deal, and that's very important, right? When you're evaluating an opportunity, but you want to trust but verify, right? And make sure no stone has been left unturned. And in the book, I cover very tangible, specific steps on how to do that, as well as resources that you can access, third party resources, so you can vet those assumptions. Speaking of the book, just remember that the bonuses that I shared, so 30-minute deal review express call for the first 30 who purchase, or a 60-minute one-on-one consult for the first 10 people who buy 10 copies or more. And then everyone who buys today will get the 60-minute Q&A call. So please do share a screenshot of the book, of your book purchase, as well as your information, so I can get a hold of you and share those details of the whether it's scheduling the one-on-one calls that I just shared, or sharing the small group Q&A call that I just mentioned. So you can join it. So with that, I appreciate you being here today. Thank you for supporting the book, and thank you for being someone who chooses clarity over hype, knowledge over noise, and discipline over fear, to your next confident deal and to the journey ahead. This is just the beginning, and I truly appreciate you.